a stand, for it was I who chose to start. If morning's echo says we've sinned, well, it was what I wanted now. And if we're victims of the night, I won't be blinded by the light. Just call me angel of morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel of morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, baby. Just call me angel of morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, darling. Just call me angel of morning, angel. Just touch my cheek before you leave me, darling.
I think most of us know where that one came from. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ledger. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, especially since I'm about to be rehashing all of my thoughts about a previous video I did a few days ago, except for two that you will hear my thoughts about. Spoiler alert, not for a while. So I will say this is going to be very fun what I'm about to do. I am ranking every X-Men movie from X-Men to the New Mutants, yeah. And we're not going to dive into any more like specific thing here. Let's just get started. But before we get into it, let me just give a quick little shout out to Film Kid for giving me the idea for this thumbnail, which is a really good thumbnail in my opinion. So I would like to give a big thank you to Film Kid. I will try and put the link to his channel in the description below. And now, without further ado, we can get started. In last place, The New Mutants, a bland and forgettable and boring attempt at a sci-fi movie where it really just does not offer anything into the canon. You could literally delete this movie from the timeline. Not a single thing would change. They reference the X-Men once. Other than that, it's just completely a movie. And it's just so boring. The CGI is rough at points. It competes with X-Men Origins Wolverine for the worst CGI. It looks terrible at certain points. And I find the characters to be unlikable, especially the blonde girl. I can't stand her. She is such a terrible person who I really wish could have died in this film. And none of the cast has chemistry with each other. It's just a really bad film. And I think the main character is so terrible. I think that every chance she gets, well, I mean, every time she tries to be a dramatic actress, she falls flat on her face. It is so boring. It tries to go into horror elements, and it, again, falls flat on its face. It is not scary. It is just so boring. I absolutely hate it. I think that it's so terrible the way that they make this final fight just some big CGI fest where it just turns so terrible. It is the one of all the final fights I would least like to rewatch, and I find that it is one of the worst parts about the movie, that final fight. And I think that everything about this movie is awful. There's probably not a single redeeming quality. It is an F film. I would give this like a 1.5 or 1 star. I absolutely hate it. It is so terrible. I think that there's nothing distinct about this movie. Every other film in this entire franchise, whether you like it or not, this has nothing distinct about it. Things like X-Men The Last Stand is distinct because of the Dark Phoenix plot line, the fact that it has a really big third act. Dark Phoenix, again, has this big train third act that everyone thinks is awesome. X-Men Origins Wolverine has the big distinct thing about the CGI claws that look terrible, or Deadpool being sewed shut. Whether you like it or not, it's distinct, and everyone knows that about the film. This has nothing that people would remember it by. It has this like Slenderman type of like kind of a villain, which is terrible looking. So I can just say it's not distinct. It's just bland, boring, and forgettable. So it comes in last place. Point of reference, all the other movies I enjoy. I will give a pass to them on. The next are 3.5 or higher, so just take my grain of salt, and even number 12 I still find watchable and I can enjoy. So the New Mutants is the only one that I actively dislike, so I would give a pass to all the other movies in this list. Next up at number 12 is X-Men The Last Stand. And this feels just like a missed opportunity where they kind of went and they took the Dark Phoenix plotline, one of the most beloved plot lines of all of the X-Men in one of the coolest comic books, and they really did not do much with it. It's mostly a side plot that goes on between two other plots that's going on, and I think it feels too much like it's trying to decide, should we do this, or should we do this, or should we do this? Or it feels like it's hopping between plot lines fastly, and it feels like because of that, like the third act gets really rushed because they're having to get through all these resolves just so they can have the Dark Phoenix thing. And you also have to keep in mind the person that plays Jean Grey, she does not seem like she wants to be there at all. Like, you can tell she was just there for the paycheck. It doesn't seem like she really wanted to be there. And just, Jean is so tacked on. She is so underutilized. And Cyclops was just what added further insult to injury. I really enjoy Cyclops. He's my second favorite X-Men, and when X-Men The Last Stand did that to him, I was furious. I hated that. The way that they kill him off and then not even acknowledging him is terrible. And I just find that this film it can be bland. I mean, it's enjoyable. I would give it a 3.5. I enjoy it. I find all the movies now, from here on up, they're all watchable. I enjoy all of them. So I just find this one's a bit more mediocre than some of the others, and while there's one other movie that did tackle the Dark Phoenix plotline, I feel like that one at least acknowledged the Dark Phoenix plotline. This one feels like it was more of a side quest, and it feels like some of the things in here were a bit too rushed. So while I do enjoy this film, it feels like it was a bit too rushed, and it had some things that were tacked on. Meanwhile, I can respect other things where they at least tried to do it. Next up at number 11 is X-Men Origins Wolverine, another underrated movie in this franchise. For me, at least, I really do have a lot of fun with this one, and I just find that Hugh Jackman is one of the reasons for that, and Leif Schreiber is a great villain. I think he's a scene stealer in this movie, so Hugh Jackman's also great in this. He's always great, and I think that there's some flaws in here, like the whole, let's just say Deadpool part of it. I absolutely hate that part. They should not have done that at all. And I will say the CGI they use on Wolverine's, the CGI Wolverine claws look pretty laughably bad. They look absolutely terrible. So I will admit, there are some flaws in that type thing. But other than that, I have fun with it. I think it's very fun and it's watchable. I think that the story has a good little momentum to it. I think that it's really the last act that hurts it so much. And I think that's one of the reasons that people harp on it. It's because of the third act. Because people don't like things like the Deadpool thing. Which, believe me, no one likes. Even Ryan Reynolds has gone out in many occasions, including in Deadpool 2 and the original Deadpool, where he just keeps insulting X-Men Origins Wolverine. Like, there's a scene in the original, like, where he's like, when he's like, I should sew your mouth shut, and he's like, don't do that. People won't be happy. He's like so meta. So, I mean, that's another reason why I enjoy this movie. Because if we didn't get this, Deadpool wouldn't be as funny because a lot of his jokes are meta jokes that are insulting X-Men Origins Wolverine. So, you guys don't seem to realize, if we didn't get this, we might not have gotten Deadpool in its full capacity, and it wouldn't have been as funny. So, be lucky you have X-Men Origins Wolverine. Ha! So anyway, this is still a watchable film, but it is probably around the bottom end of my ranking of X-Men films. Bringing us into the top 10 is Dark Phoenix, and like I'm going to say this film I do enjoy, but I will say, if it were not for the person that plays Cyclops, it could be lower because he carries this movie. I have no idea the name. It's like Ty Sure something. The guy who plays Cyclops, he had to carry Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. He may not have been one of the main characters, but I'm telling you, he is such a great character. There's a reason Cyclops is my second favorite X-Men because of him. He's the definitive version of Cyclops, and I think that he's great in this film. I think that Sophie Turner is also great in this film. She does great with what she has, but what she has is definitely more than The Last Stand, but it's not as much. It's very underutilized at points, and some of the things can be pretty bad, but and the odd thing is, there's some pretty good action here, especially that train sequence, which was actually a reshoot which is super shocking that it was a reshoot. And I really did enjoy this film. I found it underrated. On some days, I prefer to Apocalypse. When I rewatch the films in preparation for Deadpool 3, I will rewatch this one to see what I think. And I know I will not hate it as much as the New Mutants because the New Mutants is burned into the last place, I can tell you. But I will say, I could possibly either sour on it a bit more or I could have a bit more fun with it. But I think that it has more moments at times, and I feel like it's telling a much darker story than some of the other ones. Meanwhile, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, it can get a bit cheesy at times. Let's be honest, X-Men Origins Wolverine can get cheesy, but I still have fun with it. So, and I will say that James McAvoy is one of the worst. This is possibly the worst version of Charles Xavier from James McAvoy, where he's just acting like such a bad person. So I still enjoy James McAvoy. He's still James McAvoy, so it's awesome, man. I do think that it's a watchable movie, and I do think that people really just harp on this film way too much because I think that it's a much better executed version of the Dark Phoenix plotline than The Last Stand, simply because this one focuses on the plotline. The Last Stand mostly shrugs it off and has to battle for that plotline with two other plot lines. So this one puts it front and center, so it's a much better used story of the Dark Phoenix, so I enjoy it more for that. Number 9, X-Men Apocalypse, and the name is Ty Sheridan. I checked on that. So the person that carries X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix is Ty Sheridan, who also plays in Ready Player One. And I really do enjoy this film. I think it's very fun, and I think it's very underrated. I like, there's some scenes that are like very callback to the 80s, like when they go to see, I think it's Return of the Jedi, meaning it's the like 1983 at that point. And I will say Apocalypse is not a good villain. He's very underwhelming, and he should have been much more of an intimidating threat. But like Magneto in this, I think he is awesome. This is one of the coolest versions of Magneto, even though I do not like in the back half he's very underutilized to just make piles of garbage fly everywhere. And I think that James McAvoy is, as usual, charming in this. He's always charming, and I do have fun. And why is it somehow Mystique is now the leader of the X-Men? Only because Jennifer Lawrence had star power, then she should not be the leader. Cyclops has been known to be the leader of the X-Men. I don't care if he was new. Make him the leader. He's awesome. I don't care if he's new. He can learn to control it. And I think that Sophie Turner is also great in this, and there's a lot of moments that I find fun. I think it starts to slow down progressively in the back half. I think the first half is really interesting. And then when it starts to get to Apocalypse starting to activate its plan, it feels like it's starting to really slow down. And on paper, it sounds like this should be the best X-Men film, with like Apocalypse being like the greatest X-Men villain and one of their biggest foes. But he's a very underwhelming villain when you think about it. And I've known the X-Men and a lot of their, and I know a lot of the X-Men, so it's really cool to see some of these on here, like Psylocke or something is what her name is. She's the pink person, the one that has the pink blades. And there's several that I know in here, so I do have fun with this film, but objectively it is probably one of the worst in the entire franchise, even though I do have a lot of fun with it. Number 8 is The Wolverine. And I also find this one underrated because there's some people that crack on it. Someone in particular that I will allow to remain anonymous really does not like this film, but he knows who he is. But I have no idea why. I think it's awesome. This has objectively the most great moments from Logan. You get so many awesome scenes. Like you get to see Logan say the awesome line, "The Wolverine."
What kind of monster are you? The Wolverine.
That was awesome.
You get to see him cover up a guy. You get to see him. Cover a guy and make sure he doesn't get hit, and he has to take the full force of the atomic bomb. And it's awesome. There's no one on this planet that can deny that's not a cool scene. That is awesome. Seeing him just do it and then seeing him burn to a crisp. And there's just so many awesome moments in this film. The fighting style is really cool. I think the third act's a bit not. I think it's not as good, but I think the third act is better than most people give it credit for, and I do think that James Mangold's direction is really interesting, and it is from the same guy that did direct Logan, so you can tell that it does set up a lot of things that Logan also sets up to pay off, and it feels a lot like, in some ways, like this like Western type film where it's a lot more dark in that regard, and I'm really. When Deadpool 3 comes around, I'm gonna try and like buy this one in X-Men Origins Wolverine in their 2-pack so I can get access to the unrated cut. Because I need to see that scene where Logan fights the ninjas and it's rated R version, because I believe there is an unrated cut of this film, so it is darker, and so I do have fun with this film. I think it's underrated. I think Hugh Jackman is jacked in this film. Hugh Jackman is what you could call him, and I believe he actually got he went to Dwayne Johnson to get jacked, and I applaud you for that decision. You went to the right person, even if you're like half his size. But I do think this is an awesome film. The combat's awesome, but I will say there's like some flaws that will hold it back. But I do have a real fun time with this film. Number 7 is X-Men, the one that started it all. And I do think that this film was really good. I did not grow up with this film. I saw X2. I didn't grow up with any of the X-Men films. This is not like I didn't grow up with superhero films. Well, very few, if that. So I never watched this film. So I watched X2 before this. So this was an interesting one, but I would say I thought I was going to enjoy this one more than X2, and for a moment I was, but then I felt like it started to gain a little bit of a. It starts to date a. Sorry? It looks a bit dated at certain points, but I do have fun with this. Am I the only one that notices that after this, Halle Berry drops her accent? Am I the only one that's noticing this? But anyway, I think Hugh Jackman's great in this. It's one of my least favorite versions of Logan, because it feels like he's not as comfortable in the role yet. He's still really good in the role, really good. But I will say he's not as comfortable as he is in other films where he just jumps in and is so good. Like, I would say that he can get better in like his standalone films like Days of Future Past, Logan, the Wolverine. Those are like some of his best like acting as Wolverine. And I think that this is really good. I think that the Charles Xavier and Magneto, I think they're great together. They have such a great chemistry together, and I think it's awesome that they just have such a great chemistry duo together, and I find that this film is really good, and when I rewatched them in preparation for Deadpool 3, it could go up, but it could go down. I do not know. So I am wondering, I need to rewatch this film. I need to rewatch most of these films. So I will make sure to look at this film not through the eyes of someone that's going to say this is so dated. And I do have a lot of fun with this film. It's just, I would say objectively, I think there's some ones I would definitely prefer to this one. Real quick, from here on out, I love the rest of these movies. I'm giving them A's. I absolutely love them. Some of the greatest comic book films, probably like top 20, 25 favorite comic book films of all time. So from here on out, I absolutely love the rest of these films. So if you see one of them that you really enjoy that's not up in this place, believe me, I do really enjoy it. So just take this ranking right here with a grain of salt. At number 6 is Deadpool 2. And I had a blast with this film. One of the most rewatchable probably for me. I loved this film. It was so funny. I thought that the humor pretty much every time landed. And especially that post credit scene where we get to see Deadpool just fixing the timeline where he like just, like maximum effort and he like tries to kill baby Hitler and like where he that scene I think is only in the unrated cut because I watched that one. There's like the scene with him killing Ryan Reynolds that's about to accept the Green Lantern script. There's him killing his X-Men Origins Wolverine self. I'll try and show the clip.
Is that you? The Striker finally figured out how to shut you up.
Hey, it's me. Don't scratch. Just cleaning up the timelines. Look, eventually, you're gonna hang up the claws, and it's gonna make a lot of people very sad.
Huh?
But one day, your old pal Wade's gonna ask you to get back in the saddle again. And when he does, say yes.
Oh, right.
Love you.
God damn, that's beautiful. You're welcome, Canada.
And it is just gut-burstingly funny. I think that Cable is really good in this, and I love like all these references where he's like, "Zip it, Thanos," and even Deadpool cannot resist harping on the fact that Josh Brolin got to play two very famous comic book people in the same year. Deadpool cannot resist that. We all know that he had to break the fourth wall. It is so funny. There's so many great moments. Deadpool is just such a wisecracker in this. It's debatably the one where he's the most wisecracking. We'll see if Deadpool 3 tops that. Since I have a feeling it could be because I have a feeling Deadpool 3 could surpass this in terms of wisecracking Deadpool, and I'm so pumped for Deadpool 3. So I am, and because I enjoyed this one so much, I think it's extremely funny. It's very meta, and let's not forget that scene where Deadpool gets ripped in half and like has to regrow the bottom half of his body. That scene where with what he does, I'm not gonna say, I don't want to get demonetized, but the people in the room's reaction to it is absolutely hilarious, especially when he gets up and he's like walking with baby legs, but is an adult man. It looks hilarious. It's so funny. I absolutely love this, so I do really enjoy this movie, but I would say there's a few more I prefer. Bringing us into the top 5 is X-Men First Class, another great comic book movie that I really thought was not going to be very good, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think that James McAvoy is fantastic as Charles Xavier, and I cannot remember the other guy's name that plays him. It'll come to me soon in a second, I think. And I think that Michael Fassbender as Magneto is absolutely fantastic. These are probably my definitive versions of the characters. I just love both of them so much. This is just my opinion. And I think that my only gripe is that the X-Men, the First Class, is very underutilized in this film, but I do have a lot of fun with it. It feels like a prequel done right, where it's not trying to line up every single thing, but there are certain things like the fact that that they have to answer, how... Well, I mean, there's some times where, I was not asking that question, how are they called X-Men, and they were, and they answered that question, and how did they get their names, in Magneto and Professor X, with that, and, I just didn't enjoy that part of it. It's kind of cringe, if we're thinking about it, so I didn't enjoy that. And Raven... I've never been the biggest fan of her in this. She's better than her counterpart, the one in the original ones, but that's mostly because she's so underutilized in both. But also Raven comes across kind of annoying, especially in this one. So I have fun with this film. I absolutely love it. I think that Beast is also a great part of this film, and I like Kevin Bacon as villain. He's one of the forgotten villains in this franchise, and I love that scene where Magneto just uses his powers to lift the coin and just make it just float towards Kevin Bacon, and it just goes right through his head. That's a brutal scene for a PG-13 movie. It is awesome, and I think it's really cool getting to see Professor X and how he got crippled, and I think that's a very emotional scene, so I really enjoy X-Men First Class. So it is sitting here at number 5, and it could move higher upon rewatch. At number 4 is X-Men Days of Future Past. We're getting into the really heavy hitters now. And First Class is still a really heavy hitter, but this one is awesome. This one is absolutely awesome. I find that this is such a great epic for a movie, and I think that there's so many great things about it. It's great to see the old cast interacting with the new cast of characters. It's great to see Colossus in a non-Deadpool movie. We get to see him. We get to see him partially in The Last Stand, but he's also, we get to see him in this partially as well. And we also, I think it's awesome, some of the fight scenes we get. I think the Sentinels look awesome, and I think that there's so many amazing moments here, and I like that this is the most Mystique that Jennifer Lawrence plays as Mystique. This is not Jennifer Lawrence. Meanwhile, in the other ones, it is Jennifer Lawrence. It's not Mystique. This one, it is Mystique. And I think Wolverine, this is one of his best performances as Logan. Hugh Jackman, this is one of his best performances as Logan. I just like calling him Logan because I think it's better than calling him Wolverine. You should call him by his name. Unless you're talking about, it's fine either way, but still, I just call him Logan usually. And I find that there's so many awesome things about this film, and I think that I think that the way that they kill off, what's his face, Magneto, the old version of him is really cool. And there's a lot of really cool things about it. I think James McAvoy is also great in this, and I like how, in First Class, in First Class, Wolverine says to go F himself, and I'll try and show the clip of that, and then also before I show it, first in the First Class, when Magneto and Charles are going up to Wolverine and they say hello there, and he's like, go F yourself, and then because let's just say Mr. Xavier's in a bit of a bad mood in Days of Future Past, he then brings it back on him saying to F off, so I'll show the clip.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Charles Xavier.
Go off.
And I'm going to say to you what you said to us then.
But come on, that is awesome. There's so many great moments in here. It has great action, great characters, so it is definitely up here this high, and upon rewatch it could get into the top 3 spot. I just need to rewatch it before, but it is comfortably where it is, and it could move higher upon rewatch. Bringing us into the top 3 is X2 X-Men United, and this is how to do a sequel right, a sequel that builds upon its predecessor and honors it and does its own thing, doesn't rehash it, and I think that it's much better than the original, where there's so many great action scenes that are awesome. The action's spectacular. I think Logan is awesome in this film, and I really wish that, I think that scene with him killing all those guys that are trying to get the kids, best babysitter ever. That and Deckard Shaw. I would really wish there was an unrated cut of this, like there is the Wolverine, so we could see what he really could have done to those guys, when he goes to town. Logan shows us what he can do when he goes to town. That opening really shows you. But I think that this film is awesome. I think that Stryker, and this is the best version of Stryker in my opinion, and I think that he's the most intimidating, probably not the most physically imposing because he's an older version of him. And the other two were younger versions of him because they take place in the 80s, but because X-Men Apocalypse has Stryker for a tiny bit, and so does X-Men Origins Wolverine, they both take place in the 80s. And I really enjoy both of these films. Not both, sorry. I meant to say I enjoy X2, and I think that Cyclops really needs to be more front and center in this franchise. Hopefully the reboot does it. It better do it. It's Wolverine and Cyclops are a great duo together if you give them enough, they could be this, big, kind of they could be this own duo that argues a lot, but they need to do that. And I have a lot of fun with this. I think Iceman, he's also been another one of my favorite X-Men, so getting to see him here as well is great. I think Rogue is also really entertaining in this, and I think Charles Xavier and Magneto are also great in this. And it's a much better, it has much better performances in the first one. The acting seems like it's better because they're a bit more how do I say this, really grown into the role a bit more. And Halle Berry is really good in this, but she did drop her accent. I think she just didn't want to do it anymore. So I have a ton of fun with this film, but I have a ton of fun with this film, but there are two more I prefer. Our runner-up is Deadpool. And this is just such a different film in this franchise where all the other films have been PG-13, and we just get this hard R-rated just movie that is jam-packed with swearing, sex, nudity, violence, the entire package. And it is so much fun. And I just think Ryan Reynolds, he's the only person to play Deadpool. No one can play this guy better. He was born to play this role, and he is awesome. And we are so lucky this guy is willing to make fun of himself ferociously. He does it on so many occasions in this film, and I love how it's so meta, and he is just an absolute delight here. I think that the humor every time lands. It's so funny. I love the way that he's just like picking on Francis for his goofy name of Francis. And there's so many great moments like that scene where he's talking to Colossus and then he breaks his arm, then breaks his hand. Well, he breaks his hand, then he breaks his other hand, then he breaks one of his feet, and then he has to cut off one of his hands, and he leaves the hand giving Colossus the finger. That is so funny. And just things like when he has Francis at gunpoint, and Colossus is giving him this big hero speech, and right in the middle of it, Deadpool just shoots Francis, and he's like, "Why?" He's like, "You were droning on." I mean, he was droning on. So there are so many funny things about this film. I think that it is so funny. This is the most rewatchable probably for me. I think that it's hilarious. I think the design of the suit is absolutely awesome, and I am so happy that he got this. It was probably not going to happen. I believe they intentionally leaked some of the set photos on here just to force the studio into having to greenlight it. So, and of course they were going to make it rated R, and luckily we can thank this for getting Logan rated R, because they were going to make Logan PG-13 and they weren't going to do that storyline, I don't think. Because the Old Man Logan storyline must be rated R. We all know what happens in that one with how Wolverine dies. There's no way to PG-13ify that. No way. But I also owe this one a debt for Logan, so that's another reason why I enjoy it so much. But the comedy lands. It's absolutely hilarious. Ryan Reynolds is just killing it here, and I just love his performance. I love all the meta humor, like when he's like, when Francis says that he should sew his mouth shut, and he's like, "I wouldn't do that." And it's like a little wink at us, because we know what happens when because he knows what we think when we sew Deadpool's mouth shut, and he's like, it's like an inside joke to us. And the way that he's just like, don't make the super suit green or animated, which is like a knock at Green Lantern, because the super suit is both, and it looks absolutely terrible, and it's just so funny.
Besides, nobody's getting hurt. That guy was already up there when I got here.
So I love this film. It's hilarious. Every joke lands. So I love it. But coming into first place for me is Logan, a great superhero film. My second favorite superhero film of all time. My favorite Marvel film. And pretty much a perfect film. I cannot flaw this film with anything. There's not a single thing I dislike. And this one, it really is good because it's not pulling from superhero films. It pulls more from westerns and drama than it does from actual comic book films. And for that reason, other than the New Mutants, this one feels the least like a comic book film, or maybe the least like a comic book film of all time. And I applaud it for that, where it just feels like this amazing drama. And Hugh Jackman, this is by a landslide his best performance.
Take your friends and run. They'll keep coming and coming. Yes. You don't have to fight anymore. Don't be what they made you.
I think that this is just a fantastic drama, thriller, action with even some like little family moments in there between Professor X, the little girl, and Logan, and I think that it's so fantastic the way it's executed, and I adore this film. It is such a great thing. I like getting to see the fact that we get to see a Wolverine film, but this time it's rated R, so we get to see what Wolverine can do when he gets angry, and believe me, that scene where we get to see him inject himself with that stuff, and he goes absolutely nuts and goes to town on these people. That was awesome. I love that scene. I thought, wow, what a time to be alive. So that was awesome. So I think that it's a great film, and it has possibly some of the best cinematography in the franchise. I just love the way it's lit, and I love the score, that especially the ending. That ending hits hard. And just that scene where he's like, "Don't be what they made you." That is just such a sad scene, and I was crying. I couldn't. The T-800 used to be the death that made me, that destroyed me the most. This is now the death. It just destroys me. But I adore this film, so it is easily my number one. There you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 13 X-Men films from worst to best. At number 13 is The New Mutants. At number 12 is X-Men The Last Stand. At number 11 is X-Men Origins Wolverine. At number 10 is Dark Phoenix. At number 9 is X-Men Apocalypse. At number 8 is The Wolverine. At number 7 is X-Men. At number 6 is Deadpool 2. At number 5 is X-Men First Class. At number 4 is X-Men Days of Future Past. At number 3 is X2 X-Men United. At number 2 is Deadpool. And at number 1 is Logan. And this is a great franchise we've gone through. Only one I actively dislike. Other than that, I find the rest watchable. So make sure to follow me on Letterboxd to see some of these rankings early. This one posted yesterday, so if you want exclusives like that and rankings early, then follow me on Letterboxd for more. And let me know your list down in the comments below, or give me the list of however many you've seen. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a good one.